right, with that, I am going to go ahead and get us started. So welcome to the, oh, Russell, could we go back one slide, please? Thank you. Welcome to the official NASA Space Apps Collective Genius Summit closing. We're so happy to have you here today. If you don't know who I am, I'm Bridget Nielsen. I am the collective lead, and I'm going to be your MC today. So today you have the welcome from yours truly, and then we are going to get to hear from some of our amazing NASA Space Apps collective leaders about how the collective actually came to be. So it's going to be an incredible panel today. We will do some summit celebrations together, hearing both from our team about what have been the wins, what have been the highlights, but then also a chance to hear from you about what has been meaningful and all of your favorite moments of the summit throughout the past 3 days. And then finally, we're going to do some closing remarks together. One of the things I wanted to mention before we get started is that we have a Q&A feature in the Zoom webinar. And so we invite you to use this Q&A feature to add and upvote questions. You can add questions for the collective story panel, and you can do this by going to the bottom of the Zoom app and you click on the Q&A in the webinar controls at the bottom of the Zoom window. You're welcome to add any questions that you have throughout the session. And with that, we can go ahead and get started. I'm so thrilled to introduce Marie Mimiaga, who is going to be our panel moderator, and she is going to introduce our incredible panelists. Marie is our program director at Second Use, and she joined the NASA Space Apps Global Organizing Team in 2019. So since then, she has become the program lead deputy for the NASA Space Apps Enterprise, and with a mixed method approach that draws on sociological, anthropological, and design research techniques, she advises and provides strategic guidance on program design, on community management, collaborations, on communications, and she helps meet the needs of the NASA Space Apps community. She is amazing. In her role, Marie is also responsible for the oversight of the NASA Space Apps Collective program, so part of why she's here today. With a passion for social impact and talent for project management, she spent the last 15 years working across sectors, including nonprofit, corporate, higher education, and government. So we are so lucky to have Marie here with us today, and she is going to be the moderator for our collective story panel. So with that, over to you, Marie.
Thank you so much, Bridget. That was a lovely introduction. Hi, NASA Space Apps Collective community. It is such a pleasure to be your panel moderator today. During today's panel, we are going to unveil the curtain to give you a glimpse into the making of the NASA Space Apps Collective. So if you ever have been curious about the original story of how the collective got started, you're in the right place. You're definitely in for a treat. So you're going to hear firsthand from the founders themselves. So let's start by just telling you a little bit about who is on our panel today. First, we have Neisan Massarrat, who is our strategic advisor of the NASA Space Apps Collective. We also have Katey Metzroth, design advisor at the NASA Space Apps Collective, and Sarah Hemmings, program lead at the NASA Space Apps Collective. So as you hear from our panelists today, if you are especially encouraged by their responses, be sure to use the emoji reactions, as I'm seeing already come in. Thank you so much. Show them some love. And we're just going to get started by asking each of them to introduce themselves. I'll just ask you to share your role, a little bit about your background, and how long you've been working on the NASA Space Apps programs. So why don't we kick off with Sarah Hemmings?
Marie, thank you for convening all of us, and thank you so much to the rest of the collective team for putting this summit together. It's been incredible to watch the past 3 days unfold. So yes, my name is Sarah Hemmings. I've been leading the Space Apps program since 2017. I actually started as surge support in 2016, and I remember telling the NASA Earth Science Division that I'm a great number two, and I'll be great at being the number two and supporting the lead. And then the lead retired, and I became the lead, and so that's been my role for the past 7-8 years, and it's just been the highlight of my career so far.
Welcome, Sarah. We're so lucky to have you on the panel today. How about you, Neisan? Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Marie. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Neisan Massarrat. I'm a senior director at Second Muse and a senior advisor at NASA Space Apps. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I have more than 15 years of experience in technology innovation and venture development. And I've also worked with in various NASA projects for over 10 years, including in early stage innovation and data innovation. And yeah, super excited to talk with you about some of the process that we went through for the creation of the collective, and what was the rationale for it, as well as we identified the opportunity to get it out in the world. Yep, thank you.
It really is so special to get to hear the story today. I can't wait. Katey, over to you.
Thanks, Marie, and thanks everyone for joining us on a Saturday. I've been with Space Apps as a supportive team member from very early in the hackathon days. So have been to hackathons in New York City and Philadelphia and Buenos Aires. I also got to speak at a boot camp that we did before the hackathon, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, to share my own story of going to a hackathon as a social worker and a non-technical person, and how to create spaces that allow for people like me to show up and thrive within a hackathon experience. So, I've seen all the different sides of the Space Apps hackathon over the years, and have really championed design and inclusive design practices as we think about how we grow this program. And I'm excited to share more about that tonight.
Thanks, Katey. Wow, we have such an amazing lineup of panelists. And as you can all see, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience over the years. They've all come to Space Apps through their own journeys, but have come together today to share with you how they all came together to create the NASA Space Apps Collective that you all see today. So let's go ahead and dive in and hear from them just a little bit about how it all began. So the first question that I have for our panelists is, how did the idea of the collective start? Where did it come from? We want to know. I'm going to pass it over to Sarah and then Neisan.
Thanks, Marie. That question is there's so much to say about that question. I'll come at it from the angle of NASA Earth Science, because my background that brought me to NASA was remote sensing research, looking at Earth observations to measure public health impacts from air pollution exposures and extreme heat events, insect-borne illnesses, and habitat that you can look at through remote sensing. And in working on Space Apps, what we're always hearing from NASA is that it's just this incredible opportunity for NASA subject matter experts and managers, technologists, engineers, scientists, to engage with the public from all around the world, and to really see these ideas come forward in the projects, and just through the collaboration of people of different backgrounds and different skill levels, different perspectives. And they really wanted to know, how can we engage with the community more, and how can we really tap this resource of inspiration and ideas globally, because it's actually quite difficult for NASA to engage internationally with individuals. It's easy for them to engage through institutions like space agencies, but to engage with the public and individuals internationally is much more difficult. So we just have been hearing from NASA for years, how can we deepen this engagement? So that's where I came at it from, was the Earth science remote sensing angle.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, it's really interesting to think about the community aspect to the work, and how the need really came directly from both the interest from NASA and directly from our existing NASA Space Apps hackathon community, which Neisan, I know you've been an integral part of forming. So would love to hear from you, from your perspective, where did the idea of the collective come from? Was it the community? Was there something else that was uncovered throughout your time in the early days?
Yeah, thanks, Marie. Yeah, so I think the context to this is really that, I mean, the Space Apps Challenge as a global hackathon has been operating for over 10 years now, and there's been a consistent sort of growth to the initiative over the years, where now it's operating in more than 400 cities, and cumulatively there's been over 200,000 participants and so many projects created and so many initiatives that have generated from that. And it's really become kind of like a global innovation community in a way, but the hackathon really only allowed for engagement at very specific moments in time in the year. And we consistently saw that the community wanted to engage in different ways, and also more consistently, and having more opportunities to communicate with each other and do productive things in support of NASA. To that, you match also really the NASA mission. And part of the NASA mission is actually to innovate for the benefit of humanity and inspire the world through the discovery. And so through Collective, we were really trying to advance a number of key things that would meet aspects of the NASA mission and strategy, and also support the Space Apps community in new ways. So there are aspects around capacity building and knowledge sharing, and how to better use NASA's data to create productive outputs, projects, potentially solutions to NASA challenges. And so we went through a pretty deliberate design process, and my colleagues, Katey and Sarah, will speak more to that as well. But we truly spent a good year-long process consulting different individuals, experts, representatives, internally at NASA, also externally through different innovation programs, to try to understand best practice and really create something that would be highly engaging and also support this mission around what can be done with data that truly advances complex challenges.
Thanks, Neisan. I'm sure that was really interesting for you all as you were thinking about the design for the NASA Space Apps Challenge and the hackathon, and it being an annual event, and then really switching gears to what year-round engagement could really look like to fill the needs that you just mentioned, Neisan. So definitely a delicate design process to get that right and make sure that both programs really mesh together for the needs of the community and of NASA. So Katey, I know you are our lead designer through the process. Would love to hear a little bit from you. What went into that research and the planning to get it to concept stage?
Thanks, Marie. I mean, I think first off, it was a dream project to get to look at what are the opportunities around this incredible global program that has just been growing year after year after year. So it was kind of a designer's dream to be able to look at that and say, what else can we add that will add value for all of the stakeholders that we care a lot about? So how do we think about NASA's priorities? How do we think about our Space Apps community and what is valuable to you all? How do we plan for the future? So I think, you know, we went step by step, and sometimes the design process can be a really painful thing because there's a lot of ambiguity in it, and you want to jump to the answer from the beginning. But if you go through the process, you're always going to discover new things. So I think the really interesting part of this work was we came in with two hypotheses around programs that we actually wanted to build. One was focused on supporting projects coming out of the hackathon. The other was, how do we support and build capacity within the community by the community throughout the year outside the hackathon. So we actually went down kind of two paths of exploration. And within that, we started by kind of looking at the system. So we wanted to understand the system that this programming was going to take place within. So that meant understanding the history of the hackathon, what were the unique kind of value propositions or value adds of having the hackathon? What are people getting from it? What do people love most about it? We also looked at, as Neisan and Sarah said, the priorities that NASA has right now and what kind of needs the hackathon and this community can meet. We also wanted to figure out ways to add value for you all. So making sure you were getting even more than just participating in and organizing hackathon events. So what else could we do that you all wanted to see happen? So we spent the beginning kind of doing interviews. We did focus groups with subject matter experts to understand what they valued. We did amazing landscape analysis led by Valeria, who's on this call. And we discovered, of course, that NASA has an incredible portfolio of innovation programs. There are so many programs that NASA runs with different entry points, targeting different challenges. And so we started to see maybe that's not necessarily the place that we're going to add the most value this first year of running programming. We also spent some time with local leads of hackathons to really understand what you all care about and what people wanted in terms of support to build even stronger hackathon events. So we narrowed those hypotheses. First, we actually added one, and then we narrowed with the help of folks at NASA to what was kind of highest priority and most achievable for us. And that was a program to build capacity of the community year-round, to build resources, because you all are the innovators. You're doing things every single day that we can be sharing and amplifying with each other. And so we started pursuing that path. We ran several kind of design workshops where we engaged community members in helping us think through the structure and the content and the topics that you all wanted to see. And that was reflected in the programming that we've been holding over the last 6 months. So that's a bit about the design process. I'm not sure, Sarah or Neisan, if you want to add anything to that.
Just that, so for me, coming from Booz Allen and not having gone through a human-centered design process before, it was absolutely fascinating to work with Katey and Neisan and Marie and the team of experts at Second Muse, and also our data analysis work stream that has been a feature of the program for years now, and really use data to inform this design as well. And Katey's right that it was something that took a lot of deliberate, intentional work to try to not jump to conclusions about what would be helpful for NASA and for the community, and actually get some data about it to inform that.
How about you, Neisan? What was it like being a part of the design process and perhaps interviewing some of the stakeholders that Katey was mentioning?
Yeah, it was really illuminating. I mean, we spoke with really important people across NASA. I mean, from some of the colleagues that work on challenges and prices across different, scientific and engineering topics, real needs that NASA has, and the engaged communities across the world through that, in parallel to the Space Apps program. And also other subject matter experts and leadership, and other, other programs external to NASA, including accelerators and the like. And it was really, what was incredible is that we understood that Space Apps as a program, especially the hackathon component of Space Apps, really plays a role in letting people engage with NASA challenges and NASA data in a more sort of low barrier way than other types of programs that have much higher requirements to get involved. And so we understood as well that the Space Apps program plays a little bit of this special role around allowing people to engage with NASA and potentially connect to other programs across NASA afterwards. And that's something that we want to continue supporting and building towards, as well as we create new designs for new programs and initiatives. And so that was one key insight that I thought was very important, as we also think about, how do we best support the humans that engage in these initiatives, and give them the resources and the connectivity that they need to actually be productive at it.
Katey, how does that resonate with you? I'm interested to hear, especially because perhaps there were certain design principles that you were using to guide the work all along the way, and constantly testing your assumptions and thinking about the value to NASA that Neisan was mentioning. So curious to hear more about those principles that were guiding you.
Yeah, I think, each step of the process allowed us to go a level deeper in terms of our understanding of the value of space apps to all the different stakeholders involved. Our initial step was to talk to kind of the core folks we work with directly at NASA, and also the global organizing team. So just understanding that the program is at this really kind of interesting point. It's 10 years, 11 years old. I'm going to get that number wrong. 11, 12. Okay, 12 years old. And continues to grow, right? So infinite growth is not something that we necessarily, what does it mean to just keep growing? So the question was like, what can this become? And it was all about impact. So NASA really wanted to understand kind of the value of people participating in the hackathon, the impact on people's lives. And so one of the kind of design principles behind this program was to open up new possibilities and ways for us to hear and learn about the impact of folks engaging in the space apps community. So impact was one of the design principles. How do we understand that beyond just numbers? Another was, obviously, it's been stated a bunch of times, but this incredible engaged global community, that's a really unique, valuable thing to have access to people all around the world in hundreds of cities, so many countries. So how do we really leverage that and build on it through this additional program? Another design principle was really about collaboration across all those different participants. So lots of like diversity in terms of, age, experience, interests, location, language. So what an incredible opportunity to be able to bring folks with such different perspective together to innovate. So that was another one of our principles. Another thing we heard a lot about when we talked to especially our colleagues at NASA was how nimble and out of the box space apps is, and what it allows people to have access to within the organization. So we really wanted to stay true to that nimble out of the box thinking that really is the core kind of ethos of space apps. Sarah referenced this, but another one, so there's like 6 of them. I'm continuing to go, but another one is just around this like global reach and diversity behind the science diplomacy kind of goals and mission that NASA has. And then the last one was around open participation and kind of minimizing barriers for people to be engaging in programming with NASA, with data. So we really wanted to stay true to this low barrier accessibility participation model that the hackathon has really done so well.
Thanks, Katey. And Sarah, you were a part of each of the conversations where the concepts were presented to NASA, and we got initial reactions on where they really saw the direction of the program going and the value back to the agency. So from your perspective, Sarah, what do you see as the most valuable part of the collective itself? And then maybe what's something that you think stands out in terms of what the agency's perspective may be and the value that they're already seeing from the program?
I think it's very clear to all of the stakeholders we talk to at the agency that Space Apps has been making an impact in some way. We get these every year from the hackathon. We would get anecdotal stories. Our local leads are fantastic at collecting these stories and passing them along. And we wanted to formalize that a little more for NASA and help. They wanted the impact to be more visible. They wanted to really understand this and formalize some steps towards a monitoring and evaluation framework for the hackathon over time. And so the steps that we'll be taking over the next few years are geared actually towards short and mid-term goals towards making this impact more visible, helping really understand it, and allowing the community to really drive making that impact visible. And because the goal of the Space Apps Hackathon has never been to declare winners, declare winning projects and suck all of the technology and all of the talent towards NASA and the US and have that be the endpoint for projects in the hackathon. That has not been the goal. The goal is to really build capacity locally. And so through making this impact visible and emphasizing this local capacity development, that's what we really heard from NASA they wanted to focus on. So it was clear that the collective was the beginning for our new programming.
Absolutely, Sarah. And I'm so glad you touched upon the importance of capacity building. And I think it was a tall order to think about our global community, almost 60,000 individuals that are participating in the hackathon. How do we build capacity in them, and how do we build capacity in the larger public? So Neisan, one of the thoughts was, how do we take this amazing community that we have and really be intentional about capacity building? And I know that's kind of how the idea of the collective cohort came to be versus the larger Collective Genius Summit, the newsletter, and knowledge sharing to the public. So can you talk to us a little bit about the intentional design between those two components?
Yeah, thanks, Marie. So yeah, maybe for context in terms of how the program has been operating this year, I mean, there's a few activities that we've been advancing throughout the year, and there's everything from an actual cohort of individuals that have joined from many different countries to an actual newsletter that we've been running to a set of workshops, including this summit, which is one of the activities of the program itself, as you all know. And there's also educational resources that are going to be released. I mean, there's a learning module, for example, that's going to come out in the next few months, actually, that is going to be a critical resource, actually, as part of the program. And so we expect that will continue evolving. The capacity building piece is very important for us in terms of how individuals can really get the skills and the knowledge they need to engage with NASA data in really effective ways. And we also understand that there are things that need to happen on the data side of it, on the NASA side, to actually make that data also be productive in the ecosystem. For us, it's also really important to have a mechanism to actually identify where the impact is happening and what are those stories and what are individuals doing on the ground that are things that we want to know about. So a lot of times we see projects that come out from an individual or a group of three hackers, three developers, and diverse groups that ultimately can have a ton of impact with just the smallest type of support or access. And there's a lot of collaborations or partnerships that we don't hear about that we would love to hear about. So we've been thinking about all of those things as we've been designing those activities, and we'd like to see a lot more of them. And ultimately, for us, it's really about people better understanding those challenges as well that NASA is working on, and having an opportunity to engage, which we think is quite unique as well. That not everyone has that. And when people engage, we see magic happen as well.
Sarah, your face just lit up. That word engagement clearly is near and dear to you and kind of the driving factor behind the work that you do on a daily basis. I'm just curious to hear from you, Sarah. What's for you, what's driving that passion around leading engagement within our community? Where does that come from for you?
I don't know where to start in answering that question. I think that's actually why I went into public health and ecology initially in my career, and anthropology and international development work from an environmental standpoint, and getting to work on building the collective has felt like the perfect marriage behind my interest in community, my interest in engaging the public around science and engineering, and what NASA does, which I just, the science and engineering and the inspiration that they provide to the world. So to have those be married and through my work has been, that's why you see me smiling so big, especially because so many years of hard work and intentional design went into this. Yeah, and I think another thing that also has been really inspiring is I hear from subject matter experts all the time that, wow, I got to talk with participants at the Space Apps Challenge and find out how they use my data and my products. And wow, I found out there's some problems, or I found out there's something that could be better. And when we have finally really created this formal feedback loop to NASA to get some of this information from the community about what would make it easier for the community to engage through empowering the collective cohort, but also through empowering the entire collective and putting out these learning products. Yeah, that's just delightful, and it's really valuable to NASA.
Thanks for sharing that, Sarah. And Neisan and Katey's faces lit up too. You can just tell that the three of you are extremely passionate about the work that you do. And you all have been working so closely with one another to be really intentional about how the program was designed. And now to be at the last day of our Collective Genius Summit, it must be such a wonderful feeling just to see your ideas and the community's ideas in action. For those that want to get to know Neisan, Katey, Sarah a little bit better, or ask them a question about their backgrounds, their career, or learn a little bit more about the collective programming and how it came to be, we encourage you to ask your questions using the Q&A feature of Zoom in your toolbar. In just a few short minutes, we're going to transition to question and answer from the public. So please do drop your questions in that feature, and we'll be sure to answer them next. But Katey, over to you. I just want to continue this thread about the passion for the work. What started your passion for designing programs specifically through human-centered design?
I mean, I found my way to this work as a social worker. So like I said, I showed up to a hackathon and had this got assigned to a team of technical people. We worked on a solution for over a year that we ended up handing off to the city of Philadelphia. So I just saw the power of different people with different skill sets coming together to work collaboratively on an issue. So hackathons 10 plus years ago were something I was very excited about. I then, joined Second Muse, who was working on a lot of different hackathons at the time, including Space Apps, and really started doing work in the internet freedom space. So we were funded by the Open Technology Fund, which is, a US government funding arm, to work with different tool developers to incorporate human-centered design, because what was happening was folks in California were building tools that were being used in Egypt and all over the world, but they weren't building with that context in mind. So I saw the power of helping people who are designing things to really consider where these tools that they were developing could be used. And I think that got me hooked on just what it means to incorporate different communities and potential kind of use cases into the design process. And I see, community-driven design as a de-risking process. It means you're going to get a better answer. You're going to build alignment and buy-in as you're building. So I just see so much value in putting time into designing things with lots of people at the table. And I'm so impressed that NASA invested in doing that type of design work to have this program emerge.
And I have to add, what was extra cool was that Katey came in at the beginning phases of the actual design of the Space Apps Challenge in 2012 or thereabouts. And so to have her come back and be able to lend her expertise to now design the collective and seeing, oh my gosh, all these years later, wow, I can't believe this thing that we started is this big. And it also taught me that you don't have to be an expert in earth science or any of this to have an impact, to make a contribution. It's so clear just the way that Katey and her team could approach any problem they don't know anything about and find out about it, just systematically find out about it. And she's so right. It was just making sense out of complete ambiguity, not ambiguity, but just so many different moving pieces, because Space Apps touches all parts of the agency. It touches all of the centers. It touches all of the divisions in the Science Mission Directorate. It's one of the most all-encompassing things, not to mention the global reach and the space agency partnerships and the collaborations with the private sector. So just so many moving pieces that it showed that a systematic design approach could be employed in any kind of situation. So I feel like we can conquer any problem now. And to be honest, we were sitting in the speaker ready room looking at our research papers and reading our results again to refresh. And wasn't it so satisfying, Katey and Neisan, just to look at that? I felt incredibly proud of how far we've come.
Absolutely, Sarah. And it's wonderful just to take a step back in history and think about what was going on 12 years ago when some of these programs weren't even born yet. And 12 years ago, this team wasn't the team it is. The collective wasn't even an idea yet, wasn't even a thought until many years of hard work and community building and development of the hackathon to what it is today. Now we have both the hackathon and we have the NASA Space Apps Collective year-round programming. So it is really incredible just to take a journey back in time and reflect upon where we were and now where we are. But we've talked a lot about some of the really positive processes that you all took, the positive reactions that you got from the community and from NASA. It seems like the design process was extremely effective and it got us to where we are today. But as we learned from Tom Wagner in his keynote speech, success is not always getting it right the first time. There are some failures along the way, and the most important thing is that we try and we put our best foot forward and we iterate. So I'm sure there were some challenges along the way, and I'm curious to hear from you all what those challenges were and what you learned. So Neisan, curious to hear from you first. What was maybe something along the way that didn't quite go as planned, but the team was able to overcome, and now we are what we are today with the amazing NASA Space Apps Collective program?
Yeah, thanks, Marie, for that question. Yeah, so I mean, first of all, from a design perspective, the reality is that we're working within the U.S. government federal context, which has many rules and there's a very specific way of doing things, and really the sort of the opening to doing new things. It really requires some level of understanding of those rules and requirements, but also what are those pathways to trying to innovate a little bit on new models, right? And so that is really like a narrow space of design. I mean, you really have to account for all of those design constraints to be able to operate there. And within the context of this specific program, it was definitely a long process, right, to navigate that. So I would say that just having the patience to go through that process and understand all of those constraints, both through the expertise that we had in the team, but also actually engaging with the right folks, across NASA and other areas of the federal government. I think that was pretty critical. I would also say that, like one of the key things that we're trying to create for this program is really like a truly diverse program that goes beyond the traditional boundaries, right? Like we're engaging beyond the US, we're engaging internationally, we're engaging in new ways around content and community engagement. And that is not necessarily always the case. And so, we had to take a lot of effort in kind of the value proposition of what we were creating. And, we truly come from a place where we think that community matters, and everyone that has an interest in engaging has a role to play in this, right? And so for us, that's been another principle that we followed, and we've tried to expand in our work, both within the collective, but also space apps and other NASA work, right? And so yeah, I would say there's a few other things, but that's a big one.
Katey, Sarah, I'm sure what Neisan said really resonates with you. How about from your perspectives, any challenges along the way, or maybe advice that you would give to your past self if you were to navigate it all over again?
Katey, you want to go first?
I can. I mean,
Go ahead.
Mine is more of like a personal challenge as it relates to the work. I think, the global organizing team behind Space Apps is incredibly conscientious and rigorous in terms of communication and just making sure that everything that they do is really well thought out. And I come from more of a like design perspective. And so I'm very comfortable in like open space and ambiguity, and I trust process. But, I think I came into this not fully aware, because it's not visible how much rigor you all put into everything you do, because you do it so well. And so I think for me, there was a very steep learning curve coming back to this work, having been away for many, many years, into the level of like thoughtfulness around how you communicate and share ideas. I think I came in with a very like, open, maybe flowery way of describing things. And I learned very quickly from my colleagues, and I'm so grateful to have this team that, there's a precision and a data-driven way to present ideas within, to our folks at NASA that really resonated for them. So I really had to lean heavy on the experience and expertise that this team has and being able to do that. And that was something I had to learn.
Thanks for sharing that, Katey. And I think the importance of teamwork is something that the NASA Space Apps community really understands, both from coming together to form teams to solve challenges throughout the hackathon, or coming together as the collective cohort to share best practices within their communities and solve community challenges together. Really, that emphasis on team is really prevalent throughout our entire program. So we just have about 1 more minute left before the panel is going to end. And so I'd love for each of you to leave the audience with a little bit of words of wisdom or advice. So if you were to want the audience to walk away with knowing one thing about the NASA Space Apps Collective, and maybe why they should continue to be involved, and and be a part of this community, what would you say to them? So let's start with Sarah first, Neisan, and then Katey, please round us out.
Thanks, Marie. And I can actually just beautifully segue that from what Katey was saying by saying that everything, the way we've set this up is all according to scientific method and design methods. And so I don't really consider things that happen to be errors or mistakes or problems that need to be fixed. We study them and we have hypotheses that we're testing over time through the expertise of our data analytics team and our monitoring and evaluation team. So participate more in the collective, and all of the feedback and everything that you're willing to contribute in terms of collaboration and feedback is something that will be taken into account in future years of the design, because we don't anticipate that everything will stay the same all the time, because we're in this interactive design process with NASA and the world and the community, and things change. So keep participating. We'd love to know what you're interested in.
Thanks, Sarah. Neisan, one piece of
Yeah.
advice for the community.
Yeah, I would also just encourage everyone to continue participating in the collective. I think to the extent that you have an interest in learning about new tools, learning about new methodologies, engaging with a cool group of people and diverse and international group of people, and you're sharing ideas about data in NASA and all of the challenges that NASA works on. I think there's also going to be, more surprises and interesting activities along the way in the near future. And I would encourage everyone to participate, but also be very active in providing feedback. Like, we listen to everything, and it's super important to us, and that doesn't go unnoticed. So I would just want everyone to know that as well.
Thanks, Neisan. Katey?
I think mine is probably a build, but I would say don't underestimate your individual power in showing up and participating. I was struck by how many scientists, subject matter experts were just so thrilled to have access to this community and each of you. So I think, if you're showing up thinking you're gaining, the reality is people are also really excited to engage with you. So don't forget kind of the value in your perspective and your experience and what you're seeking to learn by being here. So just remember that someone out there really wants to connect with you, and they're really glad you're here.
What a wonderful piece of advice. And just want to thank each of our panelists today for being a part of our collective story panel. You all are such experts in your respective fields, and we're so grateful to each of you for being a part of the collective story and for coming up with the idea in the first place. It wouldn't be what it is today without you all. And we're very excited to see what's to come with the future of the collective. So a big round of applause to our panelists. Show your emoji reactions. Give them some shout outs in the chat. And I have the pleasure of now passing it over to my colleague Valeria, who led our data and design work. So Val, I'll just pass it over to you. And thank you to our panelists.
Great, thank you, Marie. And thank you, Sarah, Neisan, and Katey. It was such a refreshing reminder just to see how far we've come from hearing this story. So thank you for sharing that, and also your expertise. But we just wanted to take a moment to celebrate our success. We are so happy that you all were able to join us in this 3-day Collective Genius Summit. So a couple of just highlights from our 3-day summit. So we had over 1,500 registered participants for the summit. We were able to have 19 total sessions that featured over 20 space leader speakers. So there's a few highlights that I wanted to share that were just some personal favorites as I went through the summit as well. So we had a couple keynote conversations. One, we got to hear from our Space Apps program lead, Sarah Hemmings, who was on the panel today. We also got to hear from Dr. Tom Wagner, who discussed 4 lessons that you can learn through Space Apps, which he learned through his research and career. So if you didn't get to hear those, make sure that you check out the recordings that we'll be sharing after. We also had 4 different connection sessions where participants were able to connect with each other around various topics. I saw earlier in the chat that this seemed to be a highlight for a lot of folks. And we had some of our participants say that in the breakout rooms when they were meeting different people, that it was really exciting because you got to, interact with people of different generations, different countries, and just share different resources. One comment specifically about how different generations are just able to learn and inspire each other. And I thought that was really beautiful. We also had, multiple workshops, panels, and lightning talks. So hopefully you were able to join these. If not, again, we will be able, or we'll be sharing these recordings after the fact. So please make sure to check those out. One thing I thought was really special was having, representation from so many different NASA departments and offices. So we really got to have perspective from a lot of different subject matter experts with different backgrounds who are working in different areas within NASA. So from the director of the International Space Station to the program manager of the Greenhouse Gas Center, to different scientists and researchers across different offices like NASA's Joint Agency Satellite Division, Heliophysics, NASA's Earth Science Divisions, and many, many more. So it was amazing, just the diverse background of all of our space speakers. And another one of my favorites were 2 different sessions that we had yesterday on day 2, which also happened to be International Women's Day. So we had 3 women speakers in each session, so 6 expert women in total. And they all provided just such wonderful advice for women in STEM and STEAM, including how to push through imposter syndrome and also just being brave in the face of fear. So it was really wonderful to get that advice from them, and also just to be able to celebrate International Women's Day together with you all, the Space Ops Collective community. And so now we'd love to hear some of your highlights and what you thought of the Collective Genius Summit. So if we go to the next slide, we will see that we are going to go into a quick activity using Mentimeter. And we're going to run through a series of 4 prompts to reflect together on our collective summit learning and takeaways, and just new ideas that emerged throughout the past 4 days. So these are the 4 prompts here. So the first, sharing a memorable moment or connection that you've experienced during the Collective Genius Summit. The second, sharing a reflection on learning what you will carry forward. The third, sharing an idea or curiosity sparked during the Collective Genius Summit that you want to explore further. And lastly, sharing a note of gratitude to the NASA Space Ops Collective team or speakers. So if we go to the next slide, you can see how we'll be able to join. So you can go to menti.com and use that code. You can also use a link that was just shared in the chat, or you can also join on your mobile device using that QR code. And so we'll give you a few minutes to fill these out, and then we can look at some of the responses together. But again, we're just excited to hear from you all. And like was said throughout the panel, we definitely take everything that we hear from our community to heart and want to make sure that we keep implementing it. So yeah, we're going to give you a few minutes to fill these out, and then we'll screen share some of the results as they come in. And if there's any questions, also please let me know. And Russell, we lost your screen and your sound. Great, thank you. Great, so I'll give it a minute for some new responses to come in, and then we can start looking through some of these. All right, as we continue to work through these, I'll start just looking through some of the responses in the first question. So sharing a memorable moment or connection that you experienced during the Collective Genius Summit. Oh, and actually, I just saw a message come into the chat. If you're not able to access Mentimeter, please definitely use the chat. Thank you for that. All right, so some of the responses, connecting with people from all different corners of the world, definitely hearing from NASA experts in the collective cohort. Somebody chatted with a person who shared really interesting message during the connection session. Russell, can we scroll down a little bit? Let's see, again, connecting with diverse collection of people from around the world. Having the chance to hear from inspiring, successful, and amazing people. Totally agree. I was so inspired throughout these 3 days. Using NASA data for creating new solutions. Yeah, there was a couple of sessions around NASA data, and I agree. I thought there was very applicable feedback there. Loved hearing from collective cohort members about their journey. I love that. Great, thank you, Russell. Can we go to the next question and see some of the responses there? All right, so a reflection or learning that I will carry forward with me from the summit. And as I keep reading through some of these, please keep filling them out. We want to make sure that we get all of your responses. So reflection, perseverance, and motivation for continual efforts. Another person said, learning about data and topics related to space helps us solve problems here on Earth. Yes, and that is such a crucial part of Space Apps and the Space Apps Collective. So I'm so happy that that ended up being reflection. Another one, don't be afraid to speak, even if you don't speak English very well. I'm so glad somebody felt that way. We definitely want to just be as accessible of a community as possible. Somebody else said they learned about NASA data, global impact, global collaboration, and also exciting things about space. I love that. And somebody else said one of a reflection was motivation to make a change to discover to fulfill their dreams of being a space enthusiast. That is so exciting. I'm so happy that these are some reflections that you all are having. Oh, this one's really fun. Somebody said a reflection was that they met so many famous people and it was such a good meeting. I definitely felt the same way, just being with, so many experts from NASA and the Canadian Space Agency and so many people in the industry that have just accomplished so much. And then the last one that I'll read, somebody else said, don't be afraid of trying new things and changing the world. That sometimes can seem very scary, but I totally agree, and I'm glad that was a reflection. All right, Russell, can we go to the next one? An idea or curiosity sparked during the summit that I want to explore further. So there's a response around NASA data, around Deep Food Space Challenge. I thought that was really interesting, and I remember that speaker. Open Science and NASA courses. Yes, definitely take the Transformation to Open Science course. Another person also said TOPS, which is Transformation to Open Science. I'm so glad that that resonated with folks. Integrating NASA data into youth education. It's amazing. Let's see. Another idea, how much more we can improve or do by using the data and collaboration skills in our daily lives. Yes, definitely. Another person said TOPS, another person said RSET. So a shout out to a couple of the workshops that we had throughout. That's amazing. I'm glad that that's something that you want to continue to explore further. All right, and then our last slide, or last prompt. A note of gratitude to the Space Apps Collective team or our speakers. So it looks like we have just really nice messages here. Somebody said they loved us. That is so sweet. Somebody else said, thank you for inspiring us, especially young people. Amazing work by the Go team and our speakers. It's really motivated us to reach new heights. Thank you all so much for these kind words. This is, as you heard from our panel today just the motivation of why we are doing this and really trying to meet the community needs. So I'm so happy that it that ended up being the end goal. Another person said, thank you for being a free, high quality learning opportunity for anybody who wants to participate. So again, you know, we strive to be as accessible and open as possible. So I'm so happy that that is something that you all feel as well. And other people just appreciating the effort that we put into this, and just thanking us all around. But thank you all so much for these kind words. I know this is something that we'll want to take to the rest of our team, and it really is just helpful and keeps us going. And so amazingly wonderful to see this, and we'll also make sure to share it with all of our speakers who joined us. Again, we had so many speakers who are so busy and investing their time because they are passionate and love this community. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Hopefully this was a useful exercise for you all to reflect on just these past 3 days. And again, if there's anything that we talked about that you were not able to join, please check out those recordings. Those learnings are there for you. And I'm going to pass it back to Bridget now.
Thank you, Val. What an amazing activity that you just led us through. It was so incredible to see all the responses from people on why the summit was meaningful and how you all continued to be engaged. I really loved hearing from the collective panel and hearing about how the program was so thoughtfully designed and its origin story and how it really was designed with community in mind. So it makes so much sense. No wonder why it's been an amazing pilot year. We got to hear from our collective cohort. We got to connect with our global community, and we got to hear from our NASA subject matter experts. So we know that this community wants to collaborate, and we were so excited and thrilled that we were able to provide this space to you all these last 3 days. So as our programming comes to a close, I can say that myself personally, I'm just blown away by the passion, the knowledge sharing, and the enthusiasm that we've seen these past couple days. I loved seeing that so many of you were as inspired as we were, and hearing about the ways that you learned from each other. So as we continue to share the learnings from the collective cohort, we also want to have you engage in one last reflection. So we're going to take a minute to do a final reflection together by answering a question in Zoom chat. And this question is, how are you leaving the Collective Genius Summit? So if you haven't participated in a Zoom chat swarm before, it goes like this. You're going to write out your answer in Zoom, but don't press send yet until I tell you. And I'm going to give you a countdown, and then we're all going to press send together and see a flood of answers rush in. So you can write one word, you can write a sentence, but really thinking about how are you leaving the Collective Genius Summit now? So I'm going to give you all about 30 seconds, and then we'll press send together. Okay, so we're gonna finish up our.
I pressed send, Bridget, sorry.
That's okay, no worries. That is all good here. So with that, let's go ahead and press send, and we can read some of them together. So Sarah, I love what you were saying, mentioning about the messages of gratitude. I couldn't agree more. They're so meaningful to us, and I couldn't echo Neisan anymore that we take your feedback to heart. So we're so grateful for the ways that you are showing up throughout these last 3 days. I love that you're leaving with openness to knowledge and more curiosity about space, that you're leaving energized, that understanding that active community participation is integral to consistent performance. I love that. I think that's so important. Proud, full of knowledge, extremely happy, inspired, leaving the most engaged version of myself, knowledgeable, proud, motivated. These are so amazing. So keep reading through these as these flood in. I love hearing all of these things from our incredible community. We have one final note for you. So if we go back one slide, we just want to make sure that you know what's coming up next for the NASA Space Apps. So as you heard a little teaser from the collective panel, we are creating a collective genius summit learning module. And this learning module is really going to be based on actually collecting all of the resources that have been shared the last couple days, the learnings from you all, the learnings from our NASA speakers, and what it's going to be is a resource that encompasses everything that we've learned throughout these last 3 days. So this is something that we're actually going to be working on throughout the next couple weeks, and something that will be shared back with all of you. So we're really excited to share and also position all of you as the experts as you have been through this programming with us these last 3 days. And then alongside the learning module, we will be closing out our inaugural year with our collective cohort. Such a huge shout out to them as they've been through this first pilot year with us. But that isn't the only thing that you have to look forward to this year. You've probably heard it many times, or maybe you've heard mentionings or rumblings, but the NASA International Space Apps Challenge will be happening this October on the 5th and 6th. And for anyone who doesn't know what this hackathon is, it is amazing and it is for everyone. So it's a hackathon for coders, scientists, designers, if you're like Katey, or storytellers, makers, technologists, innovators, you name it, it's for you. And so people from all around the world, this community, we come together and we use open data from NASA and from space agency partners all around the world to create solutions to challenges that we face on Earth and in space. So it's an incredible 2 days that we spend together and creating real world projects that actually change the outlooks on many of the challenges. So with that, I am inviting you to join the hackathon this year, and we hope that we will see you there. With that, from the bottom of our hearts, we want to say thank you for joining us during the Collective Genius Summit. Thank you to our amazing speakers, to our sponsor, and to you all for being with us on this journey. And while this is the closing session, we are so excited to remain engaged with you all, and we can't wait to see you during the hackathon.